3.
Hello, my name is Walter. I'm in Kansas City, Missouri. There's a lot of anger and frustration as it relates to the death of Michael Brown, Eric Gardner, TAMIR Rice, and other blacks, including the one in Ohio who was in the store with a BB gun who the police murdered, and that's what it was a murder. And we're trying to figure out ways to get a response and to get justice in these cases. And I have a couple of ideas I want to express and share with people that might be of use and may help us in our efforts to get justice from this system. Let me start by saying in Kansas City there's a lot of homicides in the black community, and I'm sure it's the same across the country. A lot of them in the black community go unsolved. Normally what happens here when there's a murder in our neighborhood, the police come on TV or somebody, a representative in the police or the media, and the first thing they say is, we need tips, we need information from the community. And then when the crime goes unsolved, they tend to blame the community for not providing tips and information. It's not fair. It's not the case. We do provide information when family members, co-workers, neighbors, people in the community are being murdered. People do call in. In one case, I just like to make a point. There was a little girl here, 3 years old, who was murdered around 2004, if I remember it right. And we didn't know who she was. Nobody knew. They had vigils, candlelight marches, and all kind of stuff. We called her Precious Doe. They buried the child. We didn't know who she was. It was the most heartbreaking thing I've ever seen in my life. They had it on national TV on broadcast 2 or 3 different separate occasions. And the police couldn't find out who had murdered this child. Turns out the grandfather in Oklahoma City had called the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department 30 times with information he thought his grandson was involved in it or could be involved in it. Nobody took the time to go down and follow up on the information that the man gave. Nobody went and investigated him until they ran an article in the Kansas City Call newspaper. General Mills provided the funding for it, and a brother from Kansas City, Kansas, Alonzo Washington, put it in there once a year asking for tips and information. The grandfather in Oklahoma City saw the advertisement in the Kansas City Call and called Alonzo Washington with the same information he had given the police department here. Alonzo took that information to the police department. They investigated, they went and interviewed the grandfather. Subsequently, they put the evidence together, they made the arrest, they convicted not only his grandson, but also this child's mother. It was her boyfriend, whom she later married. So if they don't follow up leads coming from heinous crimes like this, when 3-year-olds children are murdered, she had her head cut off, it was sickening, and they didn't follow up on that, what makes us think when your cousin or your brother, your friend, your neighbor, your co-worker gets killed, and you give information that they're going to follow up? So they're not following up, and you have to ask them the reason why. They don't go to the prosecutor with the evidence that they do have and prosecute these cases of these murders in the community. That's the first thing I wanted to say. But as it relates to TAMIR Rice and these other heinous crimes that's being committed against us almost on a daily basis, it seems like, the first thing I think should happen, in my opinion, police should be suspended without pay. Right now they're suspended with pay. While these sham investigations take place with no transparency and nothing ever comes out of it, they go right back to the beat that they were on with the same spirit and mindset in the community that they had, with no remorse for these killings. It's unjustified from the community's perspective. I think they need to suspend them without pay until a proper investigation is complete. And I think they'll do several things. If you suspend them without pay, number one, there are police officers, I'm sure, and a lot of us have always felt like that, they get on the force with the intent, with this Klan, Aryan Nation mindset and spirit, and looking to do damage and harm. I'm sure that's what's happening, and it has always happened. So if they know there's a stated policy where they'll be suspended without pay, I think it'll slow the trigger-happy nature of some of them down when they're faced with black men who don't pose them any immediate threat in terms of life-taking threat. If they don't pose an immediate threat, I think it'll slow some of them down from just killing to be killing, which is what it seems that they're doing to me. We all live paycheck to paycheck. Everybody's a paycheck away from getting put out of their house. These people don't make that much money. They have houses, they got wives, they have children, they got credit card bills, and if their pay is interrupted for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks or a couple of months, it'll have a significant impact on the relationship with their wife, their children. It'll cause some kind of damage to their relationships. And I think it's appropriate, and I don't think it's asking for too much. The other thing to do is say to the community and the nation at large that no longer is killing unarmed citizens an accepted practice that'll go unnoticed. If you don't get paid, and that's a stated policy, federal, state, county, all over this nation. It'll say to the public and to the police that killing unarmed civilians is no longer, citizens is no longer an accepted policy that'll go unnoticed. And the third thing it'll do, and maybe one of the more important things it'll do, is speed up the investigative processes, because the system will act out of solidarity to the police officer when this investigation is going on, and they'll speed up the process. If they know this man is without his paycheck for however long it takes, they won't drag this out. They won't want him to suffer any economic deprivation or penalty any longer than is absolutely necessary. So those are the things I think they should suspend them without pay until a proper investigation is complete. It'll speed up the investigative process. It'll say that no longer is killing civilians, citizens, and accepted practices can go unnoticed. And the third thing, but also I want to get back to this now. We live in a democratic society. We brag about it. Best democracy in the world. First in this and the first in that, free nation, this, that, and the other. My question is, and I think it's a question that the psychologists, sociologists should really take a look at, why in a free country do we have so many police shows on TV? 24/7, around the clock. I got at least 13 of them lined out here. Why are there so many police shows? For instance, they got Cops, Law and Order, Blue Bloods, First 48, Cold Case, Hawaii 5-0, Criminal Minds, Chicago PD, NCIS, Los Angeles, CSI Miami, CSI Las Vegas, Dateline in 2020, and others. Now, they show us on these police shows the investigative tools that they have, the techniques that are available, the DNA, the scientific processing, and just how they are able to solve the most heinous and the most difficult crimes imaginable. A lot of these shows are fiction, I understand, but they're drawn on real life stuff. 2020 and Dateline, I watch Dateline a lot. I used to. I stopped watching all of them. I used to watch Dateline a lot. Dateline always deals with murder. Usually there's no witnesses on Dateline. Comes on Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday sometimes. No witnesses, very little evidence, very little of anything to go on. But they show in real life situations how they can take a murder case in the white community, no witnesses, and they don't rush into the white community with tips and hotlines. And I'm not saying that they don't ask for tips, and I'm not saying that they don't get tips. But the modus operandi is not to go in looking for tips and information from witnesses or community people to solve the crime for them like they do in the black community. They do regular investigative procedural police work, talk to family, talk to husband and wife, talk to children, talk to neighbors, talk to co-workers, check cell phone records, check where they've been, check their movements out, and they piece together events that usually, in fact not usually, in every case on Dateline, it leads them to a suspect. And they don't stop with the suspect, they continue to gather information without depending on hotlines and witnesses in the community for all the legwork, until they have enough information and enough evidence to present to a prosecutor. The prosecutor brings charges, and the people are convicted in every case I've seen other than one. So they show what they can do on Dateline, on 2020, on some of these other shows, and even on the shows that are fictionalized, they're basing some of this stuff on real technique and evidence and information. So the second part, other than taking these police out of action, don't give them a paycheck until we determine it was justifiable, whatever they did is murder. And the other thing is, since these police shows, to me, they make a mockery of our community. Can't solve it in the black community unless we come with the evidence, unless we call the tip line, which I believe people do. Then when they don't solve it, they blame us for not giving them information, which is a lie. And then they turn around, some of the same police that make mock of us, they kill people day and night, mainly black men, and it's rubbing salt in the wound for me. You can't solve it when we do it, and then you turn around and do it yourself. And you're supposed to be here to serve and protect, not to murder us, no matter what you think about us. So I think that what I think we should do is stop watching all police shows, fiction and fact, and what it would do is put pressure on the advertisers that spend money to put their products before the American people. TV operates on money like every other system in America. And Nielsen keeps track of the ratings of all these shows. They keep track of the numbers. If the ratings go down, if the numbers go down, Nielsen will pick up on it, and the money that the advertisers would spend to have their products on these shows will decrease. It will have an effect on producers, directors, networks, studios, writers, everybody connected with Hollywood, everybody connected with the media, which is a major thing in America. If we stop watching these shows, it'll have an effect. At some point, Nielsen will pick it up. At some point, they'll figure out that the numbers dropped is for a reason, and when they find out, it's because black, white, brown, yellow, Hispanic, African, Asian, everybody of goodwill, decency, honorable individuals who are disgusted with these actions of the police about black lives not mattering. They're trying to figure out something to do to get these lost viewers back, to get the revenue back. And now the reason we have to target the advertisers and the revenue, at some point, lay-in is good, protest is good, march is good, dying is good, tying up the highways is good, voting is good, praying, preaching, and believing is good. But in America, money makes it happen. It's the Pope in France, Pope Francis said that the new God is money. The new idol, he said, is money. It makes the whole thing go round. It's the grease that oils the wheel. So we can affect the corporate structure in a targeted fashion, in a particular way, and they can feel our emotional and physical pain from our targeting this financial apparatus that's part of this economic system in a targeted fashion. The elite, the money, the wealthy, the corporations, the lobbies control the politicians. The politicians control the police departments, county, state, and federal. The money class rules the country and the world. We vote for them, but we have no control over them, whether they're state officials or nationally elected officials. Once they get in office, it's the lobbyists, it's the corporate elite, and wealthy individuals who fund their campaigns even while they're running. We don't put money in the campaign, very little, if anything. So it's the wealthiest corporations and lobbyists who fund the campaigns, who host the dinners, who pay for the TV ads, and once they're elected, they continue to provide money for the politician in office to do what needs to be done in ways that we'll never know, untold number of ways. So not only do corporations through the lobbyists control how they vote on certain laws, they also help fashion the laws that they vote on. The corporate structure controls the political structure. The political structure controls these police departments, federal, county, and state. If we have enough people that can bring enough directed action against any segment of this corporate structure, society, economy, we might be able to get their attention to the point that they would be willing to put pressure on the people that work for them, the politicians, who would put pressure on these police departments and change some of these policies. Quit hiring these rednecks and racists for one, but also suspend them without pay, number two. So we need to build a movement around that. So what we would like you to do, that's what we would like you to do. Stop watching the shows from January the 1st till April the 5th, Easter Sunday. If you don't have a New Year's resolution, make this part of your New Year's resolution. Or make it your New Year's resolution. If you have one, include it in it. We need people across the country, black, white, brown, yellow, good-hearted, honorable, decent human beings who know that something needs to be done and don't stop the things that we're already doing, disrupting society. They need to be disrupted. But we have to have some kind of economic angle. Black Friday is wonderful. But if we don't shop for a day and we shop the next day, it ain't going to have an impact. If we don't shop for a week and we shop the next week, it's not going to have an impact. If we set out the whole Christmas season, it would have an impact. But I don't know how many of us want to do that or would do that. But if you don't watch these shows, you still have an economic impact, and it doesn't even affect your spending habits. That's the beauty of it. You don't have to stop spending the way you spend, but it will still have a direct economic effect on a targeted segment of society. It's a moral obligation to stop watching these shows and make mockery of us. And I think that's the first thing we need to do. So at the end of this, I'm going to just read this. How do we support these shows that mock us in reality? Our children die every day and they tell us they can't find the killer because we believe in some stupid no snitch code community-wide. Like none of us believe in some kind of stupid no snitch code. Then the ones who tell us a lie are themselves murdering our sons and daughters in the street in front of witnesses and on live video. It's like they're paid to get away with murder. This does not need to be the only option we exercise, but I believe it will be an effective one if we put it into play. Has to be an economic impact to our dissatisfaction if we are to receive justice from this system that seems to hold black life in so little regard. Black lives do matter, and we have to let these people know and get their attention, and we have to do it through a financial way that has impact on their system. So we want you to do several things. First, click on going to the event if you agree and support these efforts that we're speaking of. If you agree that this is a good idea and support it, click on going to the event. And we also ask you to support us by personally inviting your friends on Facebook. So personally invite all your friends on Facebook to this event, and then click going to the event so that we'll know kind of how many people are in harmony with what we're saying. And the last thing I guess I want to say is that even if you don't agree with it, maybe this will spark an idea in somebody's mind outside the traditional methods of protest. We march, we pray, we demonstrate, we disrupt, all that's good and wonderful. We vote, they've been telling us that for 50 years. We vote, they shame you if you don't. We vote, but if we gotta have something that's gonna target this economy. When Dr. King and them boycotted in Montgomery, Alabama in 1957, when Rosa Parks refused to get up off of that bus, they crippled the transportation system. It was a money thing. They didn't ride for a year and a half. This is the longest sustained movement since Montgomery bus boycott. What's happening after Ferguson, Missouri. But Montgomery bus boycott won because they crippled them financially. And a lot of what was happening in the 60s had some financial tie to it. Now people are afraid to even mention that. But we don't have to watch TV. We don't have to watch certain shows. Last thing I want to mention is, when the shows come on, turn the TV off or turn the channel. Talk to your children, read a book, share information, study something, the Bible, the Quran, or something uplifting and holistic. Call your neighbor, have a conversation, go to the art gallery, go to 18th Vine, go to a black business and spend some money. That's really going to have to be a part of the foundation too. So do something constructive other than watch these police shows that really make mockery of our community. We can do better. Thank you very much.